Well, what you're hearing is an Italian afternoon. That's what the song says anyway. This is one of the free songs that I get as a creator on YouTube. And I thought it was appropriate to open up this video with this really cool song, since we have a Necchi SuperNova in the background. And obviously Italian made, so buongiorno and all that kind of stuff. It's an awesome little machine, and it belongs to Jackie Miller. I've had it for quite a while, and just have had a number of things going on, as you know, with the move and setting up a new workshop and everything. So I've been super duper busy, and it's great to finally get this machine ready to show its stuff and to get it heading back to Jackie. So what's blocking the machine? Well, the Italians love advertising and marketing as much as any company. And what you see in front of Jackie SuperNova is an advertisement that they used back in the day, highlighting how smart, sexy, sassy, and beautiful their machines in fact are. So they picked some of the most gorgeous women of the day to showcase that fact. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can get a closer look at these beautiful ladies. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Kind of a contrast too. The one on the left, I'm going to move over by the machine. The one on the left has a blindfold on. I don't know if you can see that in the camera shot or not. And then everything is in Italian, and I don't read Italian, but I can surmise that based on her being dressed in a beautiful outfit, she's got her jewelry on, she's got her blindfold on, and the whole message of the day with the Necchi machines was they are so easy to use and so smart that you can basically operate them without even touching them. They're just going to do their thing. And so I think that's the message here. I'm kind of seeing world's first sewing machine with a micro electric control. And so it's got technology built into it, along with the ease of sewing and the beauty. And the one on the other side, in English, completely in English I should say, is promoting the Necchi Marella, which is being again coined as the simplest sewing machine ever invented. You know, and back then it was only 169 bucks. So, and she looks pretty doggone happy, so I don't know if it's easy to use or she's just feeling affectionate to her machine and she hasn't even fired the thing up yet. But in any case, she looked happy. And over here we've got a gal dressed almost like a kind of a Norwegian style attire, and she's demonstrating the artsy side and the decorative side of what the Necchi machines could do back in the day. And this doesn't even look like a machine that is equipped with that. It looks like it would have been done probably through freehand embroidery. But nonetheless, again, she's beautiful, she's sexy, and she looks really happy because the machine is so easy to use. Same thing with the gal on the right. You've got that decorative stitching kind of visible in the back, which is generated through the cams. When I got this machine from Jackie Miller, she didn't provide any cams. I don't think she has any cams for it, so I'm not going to be able to demonstrate any of that stitching. That's not going to be my focus, but the machine definitely has the capability to do that kind of decorative sewing with one of the built-in cams that would go with it. And she's just as happy as can be. The caption is, it's easy, it's so easy, S-E-W, easy, so simple now. The new push-button Necchi. And this is one of the Nova models. There's 2 or 3 different SuperNova type models with slightly different features and setups on them, but they're all pretty much the same when it comes to what they're able to do. So again, she's dressed in a beautiful garb, pretty lady, sexy, you know, curvaceous like the machines, and she's kind of saying, hey, If you want to be able to sew easy and just have fun, boom, there's your machine. So I just think their advertising was really good, and they used, you know, what's the thing today when you're advertising something? They use a lot of beautiful ladies, and they use pets. I don't know why Necchi never picked any cool pets that they could have had featuring their machines. Maybe a greyhound or something, showing the sleekness and the curvaceousness and the speed and the beauty and all that. Who knows? But here is a rendering, it's not an actual picture, of a beautiful gal, and you may already recognize her. Do you? Sophia Loren. They picked Sophia Loren, and out of any of the beautiful gals that they had in the day represent their product, she was the most effective spokesperson because she was gorgeous, she was sexy, she still is today. She's quite a looker, and she's well along in age. But the other thing is, she was in the movies that were being shown all across America. So as they looked at this spokesperson, you know, the roots of Italy, gorgeous, sexy. She was also in front of mind. She was the front of mind spokesperson for a lot of the movies when it came to beauty, sensuality, and everything else. So she just fit the grade beautifully when it came to representing the Necchi brand. And I'm not sure who this is, some other beautiful gal, kind of a linear, long legs, beautiful, long, beautiful, curvaceous lines, just like the machine shown at the bottom of the advertisement. So, you know, they're not stupid folks. The people wanting to promote the Neckis and get them into the American marketplace, they knew how to do it. They knew what to do. Just like here, you've got this gal on the left, you know, basically hands-free. Our machines are so easy to use, you don't even have to touch the machine. Just plug the sucker in and you're ready to go. And the other thing you may not be able to see is this is actually a Necchi brand that appears to have a folding type table, almost like the Singer Featherweight 221. I've never had one of these on my workbench. I'd love to get a hold of one, but it's way cool. And who knows, I could do stitch offs and not even touch the machine, because that's what she's saying. And she wouldn't lie. Look at her face. She's honest, right? And then over here you've got another rendering of Sophia Loren. Again, beautiful, sexy, curvaceous. There it is. Buy it. Buy it. Buy two of them. And you'll be that much better of a sewer, and that much more beautiful, and that much more sexy. And there's a beautiful picture of Sophia Loren back in the day when she was quite young. And along with it, not quite as sexy and not quite as curvaceous, one of the original Necchi or Necchi home delivery, sales, service, you name it, it did it. Vehicles that went all around the place, to all the neighborhoods, very much like Singer did, door to door. And Necchi again was mirroring and matching what the Singer brand and the other brands were doing to compete in the marketplace and say, we are the best choice, we're easy to use, we're sexy, we're service oriented. I mean, what else could you want? And they did an excellent job of getting the message out and making a very compelling case for these machines like the SuperNova. So let's take a...
And I've got to stop it there because that is not me live. That is me back in November of 2018. And you may not even have caught that, but you've been watching a video that I posted on my YouTube channel almost 2 years ago, talking about the Necchi SuperNova. And this particular one that we've been looking at in this video belonged to Jackie Miller. But that's not what this premiere is about today. It's about a Necchi SuperNova that belongs to Debbie Gauvain from Ohio. And she's the one again that made the pilgrimage 1,600 miles round trip with her daughter and her daughter's friend last fall to drop off 5 machines. Well, this Necchi SuperNova marks the final machine that I am going to present of hers before it's shipped back to Ohio. And it's been a long road, to say the least. I believe that Debbie from Ohio gets the blue ribbon as far as having brought the most number of machines at one time to the workshop. Hands down. Other folks have sent 2, 3 machines, kind of like Tony, also from out east as well. But Debbie's got the award. And we should look at Debbie's machine instead of looking at Jackie's machine from the past. And to do that, we have to go over to the other workbench. And I've got to loosen up my tripod a little bit. It is, holy mackerel. Oh, and a book. And this particular book that you can see, I think you can see it, is titled Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, My Life, Sophia Loren. And as that introductory video from the past, again, almost 2 years ago I posted that, introducing Jackie's Necchi SuperNova. Here's Sophia Loren. And you know what? She is just as beautiful here as she was way back in the day when she was promoting the Necchi brand and being featured with a lot of their machines. She just has an eternal beauty about her. And I did not check before presenting Debbie's machine. I think Sophia is still around. I probably should check real quick because I'm just curious. Let's see here. Sophia Loren.
According to Wikipedia, Sophia Villani Cyclone Dame Grand Cross Omri, known professionally as Sophia Loren, is an Italian actress.
Yeah, we knew that. And I don't see anything about her being passed away. It says she was born on September 20th, 1934, which makes her 85 years old. She's 5'9", if you ever wondered, so she's a fairly tall gal. I mean, 5'9", that's a pretty tall gal. And so yeah, I mean, she's 85 years old. And you know what? I don't have a current picture of Sophia Loren, but I'll bet you she is just as gorgeous now as she was then. As a matter of fact, here on my phone, there's a probably not an absolutely current picture, but on the far left there. Look at that. What a beautiful lady. What a beautiful lady. So why wouldn't Necchi pick her to represent their brand? As I said in that video of the past, they were in a struggle to try to find a way to win credibility and to bring their sexy, curvaceous machines into the marketplace that was already saturated by other sewing machine makers. And Americans back then, you know, were very protective back in the 1950s, etc., of outsiders, especially outside foreigners, bringing their machines into the marketplace. They had seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of that with the Japanese flooding the market post-World War II when we gave the Japanese the patents and the designs for a lot of American-made machines, and then the Japanese basically copied them and then flooded the American market with those machines at a much lesser rate, putting a lot of sewing machine makers in jeopardy and many of them out of business. So when the Italians came on the scene and they're like, we'd like to bring this machine in, you know, needless to say, they met with some opposition and a lot of anger probably from people until they put Sophia Loren in the forefront. This beautiful, gorgeous, how can you not love her lady representing their brand. And Sophia Loren, obviously being a movie star as well, already had the affection and was just beloved by Americans because of how gracious and beautiful and just how lovable she was on the screen. So what could they do then? They were helpless. Their hands were tied. It's okay. Bring your machines in. If Sophia is attached to your machines, they're good to go. And as I move this book out of the way, you'll see Debbie's machine now without this book in the way. Although this is a beautiful distraction to have, as lovely as Sophia is. You'll see Debbie's machine right behind there. Again, a Necchi SuperNova. And oddly enough, it's amazing how things come full circle. You noted back in 2018 of November, when I just showed you that video of the past, I talked about a machine with an extension bed, kind of like the Featherweight or the 301. And boy, would I like to get my hands on one. Well, by way of Debbie from from Pennsylvania. I'm in the wrong state. Tony is from Ohio. So, by way of Debbie, I was able to get this fabulous example of a Necchi SuperNova with this cool extension bed. And if you can't see in the shot, this extension bed, the entire base that this machine is mounted in, is all wood. It's all wood. It's not metal. It's not some other spin-off of material. It's all wood. And so needless to say, this machine is extremely heavy. And again, whenever you have a wood base, you've got to do special things in packing that machine to reinforce the corner seams of that bed. All four corners are going to have seams that are joined together. They're usually going to be pegged with some sort of a dowel and glued, but that's not enough when you have a heavy machine like this bouncing up and down on top of it. So go back to some of those videos on packing a machine mounted in a wood base if you don't remember, and you'll see what I do to safeguard them so that when this Necchi SuperNova gets out to Pennsylvania, where Debbie Gauvain is at, it's going to be good to go. It's not going to be damaged. So we're looking at this machine now, and you might have wondered, okay, way to the left there, we see those little alligator clip things, which means Scott's got something wired apart from Debbie's machine. What's going on? Well, the thing I wanted to highlight, and I'll highlight it as we kind of walk around Debbie's machine, is the lighting system on this Necchi SuperNova. While everything else about the machine is smart and sexy and beautiful, just as I highlighted 2 years ago in that video that I showed you at the introduction of this premiere, their lighting system is junk. And if I'm offending any of you Italian SuperNova lovers, I'm sorry, it's the truth. The lighting system on the Necchi SuperNova is horrible. It's a horrible lighting system. And so I'm going to demonstrate something real quick just to show you how horrible it is. But let's start on the bottom right of Debbie's machine, and I'll show you a couple things. Okay, so on the left there you can see obviously the bobbin winding tensioner. You can see another funny little doodad, and then on the right you can see two switches. Well, let me focus on the switches first, and I'll come out on this shot a little bit so you can see. So on the switches first, the one that is closest to the camera, the front one, is going to be your light switch. And when you flip it, almost immediately when you flip it, you're disappointed. That's it. That's the lighting system. If I unplug the light over there, you'll see just how weak, how lame it is. It's just, oh my gosh, it's horrible. Let's shut these other ones off too. And I'll shut this one off as well. So even in complete darkness, or near complete darkness, you can see just how dim that light is. Here we've got the pillar where you can kind of make out the Necchi brand. It's way over there to the side. As a matter of fact, let me grab my flashlight and I'll just show you. So way over here, we've got the pillar for the SuperNova. We've got all this bed area over here where you can see the Necchi branding mark there on the bed. And then we've got the needle area and that extension bed way over there. Now, if I come out of the shot a little bit and shut my flashlight off, look at how much of the bed area is not lit. There's no light there. It's just basically darkness. And so a sewer that sits onto one of these machines, even in a well-lit room, is going to be, as the sun starts to drop, it starts to move in the evening, is going to be struggling, and it's going to have some sort of auxiliary lighting. Otherwise, it's going to be very frustrating. Now, if you look at the lighting that we have right now, and then I'm going to compare it to an old style incandescent 25 watt bulb. I've talked a lot about those recently as I've started to adopt and embrace the LEDs more. So here we have the bed lighting that Necchi provides for their SuperNova. I'm just going to kind of go like this. Now I'm going to shut that off. I want you to keep that image in your mind. Keep that image in your mind. And then I'm going to turn on a 25 watt incandescent bulb, a standard bulb like you would find in Singers and pretty much everything else. So light off, 25 watt incandescent bulb on. What do you think? Maybe a little bit of a difference. And as I shut this off before it gets too hot and I can't do anything with it, and I put in one of my new LED bulbs, you'll be even more wowed with what real lighting looks like. I'll put it in the same position as the Necchi light. So my point is, and as I get ready to shut this off, get that image, kind of get that image in your mind, LED lit. You've already seen the 25 watt incandescent. I'm going to shut that off. I'll turn their light back on. You see what I mean? It's just like, are you serious? You do all these other things that are fabulous to have a smart, sexy, beautiful machine, and you put a crummy lighting system on it. So, at any rate, I could rant about that all day long. Let me turn this light back on so we can actually see what we're doing. Because that lighting system is just not, it's just not complimentary of the rest of the outstandingness of the machine. If I can say that, outstandingness of the machine. And yes, the light is still on right now. You can't even hardly see that. All right, back over here. So again, we've got the switch in the on position right now for the light, believe it or not. And then the other switch that's further away from the camera right here in the back is what I would call, it's kind of a super booster. It's the Italian equivalent of a turbo, or it's the Swedish equivalent of a slow versus a full power gear. So right now to the left, as you may be able to see, it's on the low end of the gear. It's not going to take you down to 1/5 of the motor power like the slow gear on the Husqvarna does, but it is going to slow that motor down. And then if you want to go full power, all you do is push it to the right, and then you kick in that full power of the motor. Now, as I said back in 2018 when I did that other introduction of Jackie's Necchi SuperNova, nowhere on this machine, not on the back, not on the bottom, not on the inside, does it tell you what size motor is in this Necchi SuperNova. And anyone that speculates and says, well, I know that it's a blah, 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 they're just full of malarkey. But based on my experience, my decades of experience, and working with this motor, getting it optimized, and then doing sew-offs off camera on it as well, I would rate it right around a 1.1 amp motor. It's going to be comparable to a lot of the FOF motors out there, kind of like the 332s, the 230s, etc. Matter of fact, it's going to be about the same size motor as the FOF 230 that I just sent back to the same owner of this machine, Debbie Gauvain, out in Pennsylvania. So, needless to say, it's got more than enough grit and gusto, especially after I got done with it, to do all of the sew-offs that we're going to do today. Now, this other little gadget here, You might be wondering about that. Well, that's going to be to drop feed dogs. And it's actually off camera a little bit. Let me move this up a little bit. So it's actually, what it is it's a quick way to drop and to raise the feed dogs. When it's in the up position like this, as it would suggest, the feed dogs are up. They're fully engaged. When you want to lower the feed dogs, you're going to push it down. You're going to push it down and have it blow up on you. You're going to push it down and it'll be in that depressed position there with the fins left and right, and then the feed dogs are dropped. And then you just turn it and you bring it back up, and then the feed dogs are fully engaged again. It's a little bit less easy to do than even some of the Japanese clones where all you do is you just push a button, but you know, it's not a big hassle, so I'm not going to be critical of that. Now, as you saw on the bottom left of the screen, we've got a tensioner for winding a bobbin. Great. So now we're looking for a bobbin winder. Where is... All right, I'm lost. There's a clutch, there's a balance wheel. There's access for the cams. Where in heaven's name is the bob... Aha! You tricky people, you. You guys are... I get it. Dr. Singer just whispered to me. Now, Dr. Singer is an expert on singers, but he's also a real smart guy. And he goes, Scott, sexy, curvaceous. They don't want a bobbin winder sticking out there and looking like, rah! They want it tucked in so you can see the curves and the lines of the body. Well, you're right, Dr. Singer. You're obviously right. So this must be, this is where they tucked it away. Right there. And then all you do is you slide it to the right to engage it. And then that little door stays open as you're winding a bobbin. And then to disengage it, you just bring that little door back down. You push this little tab on top, and it retracts, and then it's tucked away again, so that it's not sticking out there and breaking up the lines, the sexy lines of this Necchi SuperNova. Because that would be a travesty, you know what I mean? That would be an absolute travesty. Just making sure I just unplugged my makeshift wiring to demonstrate the lighting differences, and I didn't want to shut off the power to the machine, otherwise sew-offs will prove to be very difficult. So as we continue to move around this Necchi SuperNova, there obviously we've got a branding mark that they're noted for, along with the N, which does not stand for Nancy, by the way. It might. You never know. So here on the bottom, we've got a dial, and it's basically, it's a number dial. It's basically from 0 to, I've got to look, 0 to 4. It's from 0 to 4. And let me bring that back down. There we go. And that's going to be your stitch length controller. That's going to be your stitch length controller. Right above it, we've got our reverse button. You just push it in. It kind of locks in place, so it's sewing in reverse, and then you push it again, and then it releases. If we move over here, we've got a number of different controls. Matter of fact, I'll come even a little bit wider so we can see all of them at the same time, along with that beautiful Necchi branding mark. So, starting on the right, we've got these set screws right here, which are going to allow you to set the stitch width parameters. Right now I've got it set up to sew a cam stitch, so I'm not going to goof around with it, but you would basically unscrew these, turn them lefty-loosey, turn them to the left to loosen them, and then you can move this stitch width adjuster wherever you want to move it in order to do stitch width. You can also, this is designed with a spring, so you can also move it full length, and you can actually create your own type of stitches. So instead of just having a standard zigzag, you could kind of, while you're sewing actively, you can be jiggling it back and forth, and you create little curves and tight little zigzags and just all kinds of other cool stuff. So it's kind of like a little creative magic wand right there on the front of this Necchi SuperNova. So this, again, the long and short explanation of that is, along with being a magic Italian wand, it's also your stitch width area as well. And then up here you've got needle position. When you're sewing cams, that needle position is going to be set to the left. Most of the time the cams will actually actuate it and push it over to the left if you forget to do it, but otherwise just move that stitch, that needle position to the left when you're looking to sew cam stitching. And finally over here is our cam selector, and it's also, in a broader sense, kind of a stitch selector. When you're wanting to sew a standard type straight stitch or zigzag, you're going to bring it to this diamond type symbol, which is a little bit faded. Excuse me, kind of a sideways diamond. I'll kind of zoom in on it so you can see it. So that sideways diamond that you see right there at the 12 o'clock position is where you're going to set this stitch selector or this cam setter when you're doing a standard straight or standard zigzag stitch. When you're wanting to actuate the cam, you're going to move that, turning it counterclockwise to 4, to 3, to 2, or to 1. Anywhere in that range, you're going to get various cam outputs. And so that's that's the simplicity of it. Unfortunately, kind of like the lighting system, where I think the Necchi people could have done a better job. Excuse me. The complexity of their cam system, I think, is also something that they could have improved on quite a bit. It's not a real user-friendly system. Let me kind of zoom out. We'll look at this wood extension bed, and I'll kind of show you where my gripe is, where my grievance is. Now, on a lot of the Singer machines, if you're wanting to use cam features, and it's true of Kenmore's and a variety of other machines, you're going to have a simple little fashion disc like this. And it's already going to have whatever the output of that stitch is kind of embossed on it, basically stamped on it. You're going to know what this disc is supposed to do. And you're going to pop it into position, you're going to move the machine to the appropriate cam settings, and you're going to jump off and have fun. Well, the Italians don't want to keep it quite that simple. So in this huge accessory box, let me adjust this shot just a little bit. In this huge accessory box, you have what I would call the Build-A-Bear answer. And by Build-A-Bear answer, it means that based on the owner's manual and based also on the, it's basically like a stitch card, like a quick reference card that Necchi came up with. If you want to enjoy the full scope of this machine, you've got to build your own stitch output using all of these resources that are in this goodie box. And unfortunately, hope I don't break it, unfortunately, it's not real simple to figure out. So what I mean by that, all of that stuff, that blah 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 stuff, is, and this is just a hypothetical example because when Debbie dropped this off, I didn't have an owner's manual, I don't have a stitch guide, so, but in between using this real funky tool, which almost everybody that I've spoken to has no idea what to do with it, you've got to then take, based on what the book tells you, the appropriate discs, like this, fashion discs, and you have to take a mounting stem similar to this, and you have to unscrew it. And then you have to put the correct side of the fashion disc up. A lot of these fashion discs will have a stitch on one side and a stitch on the other side. And if you put the wrong one facing up, the stitch that you're looking to do based on the book and that is not going to work. So then you have to slide it into position like this and get it onto that stem appropriately. And then in some cases you have to add a spacer on top of that, a little spacer like this. And you have to put that spacer into position because of what the book tells you to do. And then if you're able to, excuse me, if you're able to figure it out, after you get that spacer into place, and assuming you put this other fashion disc with the correct side up, then you have to add the other fashion disc that the owner's manual tells you to do. Again, you better put the correct side up, otherwise it's not going to do what you want it to do. And then you have to put that one into position, like so. And then you finally have to put this screw tap back on top, the screw cap thing. Might as well call it a screw tap, and screw that back into position. And then you've made your cam sandwich, or your Build-A-Bear, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of these stitches require the complexity of doing this, which I think, you know, the Italian people are smart, and those that bought it within their own country, you know, probably not a big deal to them. Like, okay, we'll figure this out. But as I search the internet, there are so many confused people out there about how do you do it? Which discs? What are the order? Which way do they face? Do you need a spacer? Don't you need a spacer? And so I think they could have made this a lot simpler, quite honestly, than they did. And before I forget to mention it, the cam that I finally set up, sort of, that's in the machine is cam 30. So we're going to give that a try during this premiere. So, you know, between the lighting system and the cam system, I think the Italians probably needed to go back to the drawing board and make it just a little bit easier, make it a little bit more effective. And again, this channel is all about learning. It's a classroom, and in the classroom we can be honest, and that's the honest assessment of those two areas, the cam system and the lighting system as well. So, what else did I miss? We were over here by the stitch selector, the cam actuator. I already told you that the cams go up here, and we have cam 30 in there. Oh yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. This is another little area that's very interesting. And I may have to come off the, matter of fact, I will do that. I'll come off the tripod for this. Got a horrible frog in my throat the last couple of days. I think it's the changing of the seasons, the allergy stuff, and all that. It's just driving me nuts. Okay, let me stop making you seasick here. So the first thing you'll notice, even amid the very poor lighting, the first thing you'll notice is we've got a real funky plate here that goes over the feed dogs, and it also comprises the needle plate as well. It's all kind of like a all-in-one, and it's got all these different feed dog cover options. What are those about? Well, the Italians, again, wanting to be smart, as they are, they're very smart people, they wanted to give a different approach to what if you're sewing different types of materials, kind of like we're going to be doing on this sew off today. We're going to be doing everything from velvet to leather to canvas to compressed felt to canvas/vinyl binding tape. We're going to be doing just a wide scope of different material sew-offs, kind of like we pretty much do on all of the premieres, because we want to showcase the versatility and the strength of the machines that I've restored. Well, the Italians have taken it a step further. they said a lot of people will look at different presser feet. They'll look at adjusting presser foot pressure like that Scott guy from America is always talking about. But we want to add a special plate cover that will give built-in options that will allow people to make adjustments based on the material they're sewing. Blah, 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 blah. So the current position of the feed dog cover that you can kind of see in the shot there is for standard sewing. It's going to be for zigzag. It's going to be for straight stitching. You can kind of see in the rear there's two feed dogs kind of popping up. And then there's two long feed dogs on the right and on the left that are going to be pulling that material through evenly. So that's your standard setting right there, exactly as we have it right now. As we move over to this one is going to be designed for sewing those more delicate fabrics, the silks, the satins, the velvets, and you can rotate this daisy wheel type cover over to that position, get it over the feed dogs, lock it in place, and then you can sew those delicate ones and then just rotate it back when you're looking to sew using this regular feed dog cover again. Of course, you'd have to rethread the machine again because the thread is coming through that particular plate cover, and it's not going to work if you don't do that because you have to kind of go back and forth. So that again is it's an interesting innovation, but it's also a little bit inconvenient because you have to basically, every time you want to switch from one of these to another, you've got to rethread and pull that bobbin thread up again. So standard, delicate, and then finally this one way in the back over here is for dual needle sewing. So you can see that wider space in the middle to allow for that wider needle assembly with having twin needles being able to fit through there for sewing. So again, they've got this daisy wheel setup. We'll kind of zoom out a little bit. You know, this is our standard sewing that we're using right now. Silks and satins, delicate materials, dual needle sewing. And you might be saying, okay, Scott, great explanation. All that is well and good, but how the heck do you activate it or do it or whatever? Well, you got to move this out of the way. And the way this is set up on Debbie's machine, there's no springs, there's nothing holding this really in place. This cover right here that goes over accessing where you can access the bobbin, and also this little mechanism for this daisy wheel thing. So this kind of just pulls out of the way, you set it down to the side, and periodically when you're sewing, you'll hear this thing kind of jingling because, you know, there's nothing really holding it down. You'll hear like a little metal rattling sound maybe while we're doing sew-offs today. Nothing wrong with the machine. It's this little thing right here that when you slide it into place, it tends to vibrate a little bit and make a lot of noise. So that might be something that Debbie will want to add like a little piece of tape to or something, and when she doesn't need to get in there, you know, just kind of quiet that sucker down so she doesn't start getting frustrated. Okay, so if we look into this little opening where you can see the raceway down there, you can see our bobbin case. Over here, there's a little button thingy. See that right over there? That's going to allow you to pop this daisy wheel cover up. I'll come out on the shot a little bit. It's going to allow you to pop that daisy wheel cover up and to rotate it to one of those different settings. So if you want to do delicates, if you want to do dual needle sewing, whatever, all you do is take your thumb, your finger, whatever, and you just push it in. And when I push it in, watch the plate move. See how it popped up? So the thought now is if I want to rotate it, all I do is basically take this and I turn it. See how that turns? It pivots. And you would obviously take the thread out of there because you'd have to pull the thread up through the bobbin area again and rotate it to the appropriate one that you want, whether it's the delicates over here or the dual needle sewing over there. And then when you're done goofing around with it, you just basically take your finger in the middle, kind of push down, and it locks back into place again. And you just want to kind of check your thread, make sure your thread is still, you know, it's not caught or crimped or anything like that in there. And then you put your little plate back on, your jiggly plate, and you're all set to go. So that's kind of an interesting innovation. If you've never known that and you have a SuperNova and you just thought, well, I don't even want to deal with those things. I don't even know what they are. Now you know what they are. So, and as we're down here by the needle, I'll just point out real quick, real good presser foot clearance. In addition to that, you also have a modest hyperextension on this as well that gives you probably another 2 or 3 millimeters if you have some real thick material you need to fit underneath there. And threading the machine is a little bit confusing apparently to people on the internet, because as I was kind of just tooling around and looking at some other people that posted on this machine, as I found my old video from 2018, number of people were threading this machine wrong. So as easy as I thought it was, apparently it isn't. So I'm going to just basically walk you through that real quick. Make sure you have your SuperNova threaded properly, and then we'll kind of go from there. But while we're still looking at the needle, know that the flat side of the needle is going to go towards the pillar, towards the motor, which is to the right, and then you're going to thread this from left to right. Okay, left to right, flat side to the right, and you'll want to make sure that you have that set up as well. And when you put your bobbin into the bobbin case, you'll want to have that thread coming underneath the bottom of the bobbin. So as you're pulling it, that bobbin is going to be turning clockwise. Okay? So I'm just going to open this faceplate real quick. First of all, so I can badmouth that light more and kind of show you what that light looks like. It's a real weird long light, which kind of snaps in there. And so there's no way to... maybe there is an LED equivalent, but you'd have to do some searching to get an LED equivalent that would fit between those two contacts just perfectly. So upgrading this is a little bit more challenging than the Singers, the Husqvarna machines, or the FOF machines. So while I have the faceplate open, let me just do this. Let me just walk you through the threading real quick. So coming off the top of the machine, we've got our spool pin right there. We have 2 spool pins. Obviously, one is going to be for winding a bobbin. The other one is going to be for regular sewing. Technically, you could argue that one of them is also used for the second spool of thread if you're doing dual needle sewing too. Now you've got this thread guide right up here, and what you're going to do is you're going to come through, excuse me, you're going to come through this top hole. There's 3 holes. You're going to come through this top, I'm pointing at the wrong thing. You're going to come through this top hole, and then you're going to come through this bottom hole from left to right. You're then going to come down to the tension discs, come around the tensioner, over this spring, and you'll go right through the middle of the spring. You can see there are actually 2 grooves on the spring, one closer to the body of the machine, and then one closer to the camera that we're threaded through right now. That again is because if you're doing dual needle sewing, you're going to have 2 threads coming through this tensioner. The second thread closer to the body will be that other thread for twin needle sewing. But you'll come through this tensioner closest to the camera, and you can see right here are your settings for setting the upper tension from 0 up to 6. Right now we're right at, we're pretty close to a 4, between a 4 and a 5. But again, you're going to come around the bottom of this tensioner. Let me come out of this. You're then going to come over that spring, like I've already shown you. You're then going to come, what some of the people were doing is they were coming through this little slat right here. After you came through that, the tensioner, they were coming through this little slat right there, and they were putting the thread in between the goalposts. You don't want to do that. You want to bring that thread from the tensioner around the bottom. See where it is right there? Around the bottom of this thread guide. Come on, camera. Around the bottom of this thread guide, and then up to the take-up arm from there. Almost looks like a marionette, doesn't it? And then when you come up to the take-up arm, you're going to come back down, and now you are going to go through that little slat and put that thread through the goalposts. And then you're going to continue down from there, like you can kind of see the thread following. You're going to come down from there and drop the camera, hopefully not. And then you're going to come through that thread guide next to the needle in the front. I've seen people threading the front and the back one down here when they're doing just standard sewing. Either one will work, but if you put it on the front one, it's going to create a little bit better flow symmetrically. See how that's angled? Then all the way to the rear. And then when you come down here, you'll go ahead and thread that needle, as I've already said, from left to right. So this is the only tricky part right here that a lot of people are kind of goofing up on. I've seen a number of people presenting videos even where after they come off the top, they're coming through here. Some are going through the second hole and then the bottom hole. Some people are going through the first hole and then the second hole. The thread is going to flow best if you go through the top hole and then through the bottom hole from left to right and then down to the tension discs. Over the spring, like I've already shown you. And then again, instead of going in between the goalposts through that little slat right there, see if I can back out and the camera will cooperate. Let me go way over here. So instead of going through that slat right there, right after you've come underneath the tensioner and you've gone through the spring, again, you're not going to want to go through the slat on the first round. You're going to want to go underneath this assembly, right there where you can see the thread. See that thread? It kind of tucks underneath there, and then it leads up to that take-up arm. And then the take-up arm thread comes back down, and at that point you do go through this little slat, and you put that thread in between the goalposts. So one thread is on the outside, the first one that you're threading, and then after you come down from the take-up arm, that thread coming down, heading towards the needle, is going to go through that slat and be between the goalposts. Hopefully I'm explaining it well. I think I am. And then again, you just bring that thread down. I would put it through this first thread eyelet here, and then bring it down to the needle, threading from left to right. Okay? I hope that's helpful, because as I was going around, kind of tooling around, looking at a lot of videos, including discovering my own again, kind of forgetting, oh yeah, that is out there. It was amazing how many people screwed that up. A lot of folks were putting both of the threads between the goalpost, as I refer to it, instead of the one on the outside, closer to the body of the machine, the first one, and then the second one coming from the take-up arm down through that slat in between the goalposts, going down to the needle. Blah, 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 blah. But people will experience, along with some of those posts, I saw people talking about threads breaking and other things, and if you don't thread a machine properly, you're going to have problems like that. So just be mindful of that if you have a Necchi SuperNova, how to thread it appropriately. Okay. Excuse me. Frog, 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 frog. Okay. So I'm going to come down to the needle finally. I'm going to see if I can find some good Italian music that YouTube has provided me. And we'll do some sewing on this machine. Let me see here. So I don't know how many of you I had tricked at the opening of this premiere if you thought that I was actually, it was a live video and I was presenting this Necchi SuperNova belonging to Jackie Miller. That's part of the reason I did that. It was just to kind of be tricky and, you know, basically introduce or reintroduce to you a video I did almost 2 years ago, and then lead into the actual live premiere. So that Scott's a tricky guy. All right, so let's put on some Italian music. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit, but loud enough that we can also enjoy it, because I just think Italian music is just absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous music, so beautiful, so romantic, so sexy, just like the Italian people, doggone it. So, all right, so here we go with some Italian music. This first one is called Trieste. Trieste. Excuse me. Get a quick drink of water or coffee. Just checking my alignment there. Isn't this beautiful? Do you feel yourself like on the river, the rivers that you always see in Italy? Oh my gosh, I do. Okay, so if I have this set up correctly, which you never know, right? Especially with these SuperNovas, they are not a beginning sewer's machine. If you're just learning how to sew, I would not recommend that you pick this machine, quite honestly. It's just not a real simple machine to use in some respects. But let's go ahead and see if we can get this cam feature to work. Again, just setting up the cams and everything is a very complex process, but with this cam 30 in here, I'll show you the different things that it's able to do, and we'll use this fake leather stretchy type material. If you haven't seen it on the channel before, I kind of show you right here. It's like, it's real stretchy stuff. So I use it because it really does test to see how well those feed dogs are working, regardless of what setting you have that little daisy wheel set on. So let me get this foot controller, which is also kind of a unique thing. I'll see if I can remember to show it to you. It almost looks like an Elna foot controller. And the first thing we're going to sew is position 4 on the cam. Position 4 on the cam. Now the cam is only supposed to generate one stitch, but as you move it between the different settings from 4 down to 1, it's going to change the look of that cam generated stitch just slightly. So let's give that a go and see if it works. There's the voice of confidence. Let's see if this works. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to move this to the highest position. The other thing I should show you, you kind of saw it sewing up close and personal by the needle, and we kind of generated a kind of an odd little zigzag style pattern thing here. That pattern Fashion Disc 30 is generating, blah blah blah, and that's what it gave us the first time, which I don't think that's anything super spectacular. I think it's like, okay, whatever, it kind of looks like something. But as we change the settings above on that selector and go from 4 to 3 and to 2 and to 1, you're going to see that we get different outputs. Even though it's the same cam in the machine, we're going to get different outputs of what that stitch is going to look like. The other thing I want you to be able to see, which I think is really kind of cool, is as this machine is sewing the cam, you're going to see that Italian magic wand, the stitch width selector. You're going to see it going back and forth in response to what the cam is telling it to do. So let me widen this shot as we move to, let me move this selector from 4 to 3. We'll widen the shot a little bit. There we go. I think that's, I want to get that little stitch width thing in there too. There we go. I think that'll work. And then we'll look at these up close, a little bit personal afterwards. So what we're going to do now is move this selector up here, which again allows you to choose the different cam settings, anything from basically 1 up to 4, and they've got middle points as well. So you've got 3.5, you got 3, you got 2.5, etc. So I'm going to move it down to, it's going to take too long if we do like each middle increment as well. Let's just move it down to 3 now. So I moved it from 4 to 3, and let's see how the output changes now based on the cam 30 that's in the machine, okay? Just move that take-up arm up. All right, here we go. And also at the same time, watch this Italian magic wand stitch width kind of moving on its own as the cam tells it what to do. And I don't know if you can see it in the shot, but here, I'll clip it and then I'll show you. But by moving that selector from 4 to 3, now we have something that's starting to look a little bit more impressive. Something that's actually starting to look like a stitch pattern instead of more like a blob. So you can see the top one is the first one that well, we're way out. That's not very helpful. Let me just sew these off and then I'll show them to you afterwards, because we're like out in the cheap seats right now where you can't really see things clearly. So I'm going to move this back into position, lower our presser foot, and then I'm going to move this selector from 3 down to 2. And we'll see how the output changes when we do that. Alright, are you ready? Move this all the way up. Here we go. And again, look at that stitch width selector kind of just moving like it's got a mind of its own. It's got a mind of its own. Move that back. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to put that material back into position, lower our presser foot, and now we're going to move our stitch selector from 2 all the way down to 1. And we'll see what output we get from that cam 30 that's in Debbie's machine right now. All right, here we go. And I'll mention before I do it so that when we actually do it, you don't go, oh, what was that? That was a bad sound. When you're moving from the cam generated settings and you want to move back into the mode on that sideways diamond that I showed you before, that is designed to allow you to do regular sewing, straight stitch, zigzag, you're going to hear the machine make a loud audible click. And that's because it's mechanically disengaging the cam function and it's re-engaging the standard sewing mode on the machine. So when we end up doing that, you hear like a click, almost like a cling ping. Don't be alarmed, there's nothing wrong. It needs to make that clicking sound in order to switch back. Okay, so let's take a look at these. Let's take a look at them and be amazed at the cam generated functions of this SuperNova. Yes, you did hear a hint of sarcasm. I don't think they're horrible. I think that with all the other great innovations the Italians made, I think they could have done better with the ease of using the cams. You know, because right now we're using a very basic cam setting, and I'm going to kind of do that so we can look at all of them. So on the very top row, that's the first one we did. The top row is the one we did at setting number 5, right? The one below that is setting number 4. The one below that is setting number 3. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Did we start on 5 or did we start on 4? There is no 5, Scott. Is that right? I'm having to check. There is no 5, Scott, you silly goose. All right, I stand corrected. Literally standing corrected. We started on the top row on setting 4, not 5. See that? You're dissing the Italians and now they're messing back with you. So the top row was setting number 4 on the selector. This selector right there. We started on 4 and we got that top row output. That thing is crooked, isn't it? It's because it's real bendy and it's kind of rubbery and it tends to move, whether you want it to move or not. So the top row is setting number 4. Then we did the second row, which is setting number 3. The third row down is setting number 2. And then finally the last row, which I think is the most spectacular, is setting number 1. So you can kind of see the impact that you can have when you put a cam in the Necchi SuperNova between those different settings on that selector. If you've got a SuperNova and you just have always left it on 1 and generated whatever stitch you're going to generate based on the cam stack that you put together, remember, kind of like the Build-A-Bear thing, I'm going to make a special recipe of cams today, then you've been missing out, because as you change that selector to the different settings, you're going to get very different looks for that cam generated stitch. Make sense? Of course it does. You guys are so doggone smart. So I'm going to spin this around and we'll look at the lock stitch. And yes, I even folded the material, this stretchy, rubbery, fake leather stuff, so that we can see the stitch a lot better than if we use the backing of it, which is kind of a grayscale. So here again you can see the stitching. The top row is setting number 4. The one below that, setting number 3, setting number 2, and the very bottom one is setting number 1. And those lock stitches look just as perfect as the top stitches. So this is a definite pass as we've kind of learned this cam system a little bit on the Necchi SuperNova. And I'm going to throw this to the rear. I'm going to literally throw it to the rear. All right, so let me put on some more Italiano music. This next one is called the Mamas. I'm not making that up. This next one is called the Mamas. All right, here's the Mamas. All right, so I'm gonna turn that music down a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and move this back into, matter of fact, I'll move over here so this will be easier for you to see. So this is our selector, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it now, so we're going to be going from cam functions back to standard functions. Turn this down a little bit. Okay, so we're on 1 right now. I'm going to turn it clockwise. Now we're at 2, at 3, at 4. Notice there is no 5, Scott. Duh. Hello. And then finally we're going to move it back to this diamond setting. You see that? We're going to move back to that diamond setting. And we're also going to, normally what I would do is I would just turn that balance. Could you hear that? I was kind of making a noise, the music, but you heard like a little click. That clicking sound is going from cam back to standard. And then I'm going to move our needle position, which you may not be able to see on camera, back to the middle position manually. Alright, so now we should be, move that all the way down. Okay, so now we should be back in standard sewing mode. So we can either sew a zigzag or a straight stitch. The cam stack will not be moving. So you can kind of see I moved the needle position. It was on the left side because again the needle position will be positioned left when you're sewing cam functions. And now we're back on 0 for our stitch width on our magic Italian wand thingy, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so I'm going to go back over here and we're going to do some more sew offs. And I really enjoy the zigzag on this machine, so I'll probably do a fair amount of zigzagging along with straight stitching. And in part because the thread color I picked, which is kind of a mint green, will not show up real well with a straight stitch on some of the materials. So I'll probably go back and forth just a little bit. Hello. Stop moving, camera. There we go. Alright, so let me turn my screen around. So that last song we kind of heard amid my talking and amid changing modes on the machine, was it called the Mama? Is it called the Mama? Actually, I've got to correct myself now. It's actually called Mamas. And this next one is called Italy Junior. Italy Junior, I'm not making it up. And Italy Junior is kind of peppy. Okay, so the first thing I think I'm going to sew is, because it's going to make the bed so doggone dirty, I'm going to sew this velvet first. And this stuff just frays and gets all, I mean, it's leaving debris all over the place. You know how I am about debris. It's like, ah! And we're going to do 2 layers of this velvet. I'm going to kind of fold it like that. This is going to be tricky stuff to work with because, you know what, as a matter of fact, I'm wondering if that's going to be too slippery. Well, we'll give it a try. I'll kind of guide it and we'll do our best with it. So I'm just going to sew down the middle of it and we're going to do a zigzag. So I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch width from 0 to 5. And I'm going to use those little spinner things to lock it into place. As a matter of fact, I probably should show that to you, shouldn't I? I should show that to you. So let me change this shot. Let me change this shot. So all I was going to do, is right now our stitch width is down on 0, and I don't want to have to hold it in the 5 position the whole time, like this. See how it's spring loaded? So instead of holding it in position the whole time, I should also change my stitch length as well back to 4. I'm going to lock it in place, and I just loosen this little set screw right here, slide it over as far as it'll go, and then spin it clockwise to lock it into place, and then that stitch width lever, the magic Italian magic wand, will then stay in place so I don't have to hold it manually. Okay? So let's go ahead and lay down a zigzag on this velvet, which is very, very slippery stuff. We'll move on to our next sew off. And hopefully this behaves. Behave, okay? All right, here we go. We're almost ready to go. I got to get my slipper on the foot controller. Yay! I actually did it. It actually didn't slip. Who knew? All right, let me clip these threads and we'll zoom in and look at this velvet. I don't know that I've done velvet before, have I? I don't think I've done velvet on this channel. I just happened to acquire this this material and I wanted to put it to the test on this Necchi SuperNova. I wonder if I'd be better off going vertical. Might be better off going vertical on this, although I think it's so light I don't think it's going to stand up real well. Alright, let's just stick with going sideways. And I'll probably have to balance it with my clips, I'm guessing. Okay, let's take a look at this top stitch on these 2 layers of velvet. I never changed the camera back, so you were looking at this while I was sewing. Sorry about that. Oops. So here's our zigzag right here, which is absolutely spectacular. You can see the density of that material. Very dense material, even though it's a soft material. It's got a lot of depth, a lot of thickness to it. And yet that zigzag is just absolutely spot on. See, there's the backing. I didn't shut off my phone. Let me shut off my phone real quick. Okay, so you can kind of see the backing that we would have had to deal with if I hadn't put it back to back. It's kind of a gray, it almost looks like a, I can't explain exactly what it is. It's more like an elastic backing. But I think that this, putting it like this will show those stitches a lot more clearly than we otherwise would be able to see them. So I'm just going to go across one more time. Perfectly formed stitches. I'll come out on this shot a little bit. We'll turn it around and look at that lock stitch. This. Stuff kind of curves a little bit, doesn't it? Okay, hopefully I got the right angle. So this is our lock stitch on these 2 layers of velvet. Yeah, I don't have the right angle. You can hardly see that one, but as we go across, they'll come into view. But the lock stitch is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. So I think this is a definite pass. The first time to my knowledge that I've sewn velvet on this channel. 2 layers of it, and it looks absolutely spectacular. Top stitch and lock stitch. So I'm going to throw that to the back, and we'll move on to the next stitch off. Or as I like to say, confirmation stitch off. Confirmation stitch off. All right, let's come in on this shot a little bit. Okay, so what should we sew next? We just do Italy Junior? I think we did. Yeah, we did. So this next one is called Morning Stroll. Morning Stroll. All right, I got to turn this up. This sounds like it's from Monk. Any of you that watch the program Monk, listen to this. Honest to Pete, that sounds like the theme from Monk a little bit, or a variation of it, doesn't it? Oh my gosh, I'm seeing Monk right now. Totally. All right, I'll turn it back down. So that's Morning Stroll. Morning Stroll. Okay, why don't we do some leather now? We'll do some leather, and let's see what I'm going to do first here. This is, and this is appropriate, this is Italian leather. This stuff right here is Italian leather. I'm going to go ahead and do 2 layers of it, and we'll lay down a zigzag, and we'll see how this machine does. Actually, I'll lay down a straight stitch and a zigzag. Why don't we do that? I'll do a zigzag and then a straight stitch, since I already have it set on zigzag. All right, here we go. A zigzag on 2 layers of Italian leather. How appropriate is that? Here we go. That was totally like a Monk song. Totally. I'll tell you one thing. That Italian leather was trying to be naughty. Did you see me kind of battling it at the end? Trying to get it to stay straight? No wonder they came up with this daisy wheel. See that? I have it on the correct setting right now for general sewing. We don't need delicate and light, that's for sure, not with leather. We don't need dual needle sewing. But still, that thing was kind of like, hey, I'm going to mess with you, Scott, because I can. Hello. All right, so now I'm going to do a straight stitch. So I've got to move off camera, move that stitch width back to 0. And now we'll lay down a straight stitch next to this zigzag on these 2 layers of Italian leather. All right, here we go. Well, I thought I had it all the way on 0. Apparently, oh, I don't. I've got it like at 0.5. Well, that's okay. It's still a good looking stitch nonetheless. Even though it's not what I was aiming for, but it's close enough. All right, let me move this back into position. Clip these threads and we'll take a look at what we did get. We'll look at what we got and we won't throw a fit or something like that. Okay, I think I'll need my clips again to keep this, because I don't have this. See how I have that leather kind of cut crooked? Let me correct that real quick so that we can lay this down and it's going to be reasonably straight. Reasonably straight. Not absolutely straight. All right. So on the top we've got the original zigzag that we sewed. On the bottom we've got what was going to be a straight stitch but decided to be a slightly modified zigzag. And in both instances, whether planned or not, spot on. Beautiful stitching on the part of this Italian engineered. Look at the thickness of that. The 2 layers of Italian leather. So in both cases, we've got gorgeous zigzags for the top stitch. So let me come out on this shot and we'll look at the lock stitch on the back. And we'll see how the lock stitch looks. We pretty much know already, right? So there's our lock stitch. Absolutely spot on. Spacing the formation. I might go just up slightly on that upper tension to tighten up that lock stitch even a little bit more through these 2 layers of Italian leather. The top one looks fine. The bottom one I'm seeing just a little bit of a weakness in definition. But all in all, a spectacular stitch quality in both rows. So the 2 layers of Italian leather are a definite pass. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the back. And I'll pick some more Italian music. See if we get any more monk style music, monk themes. So that last one was called Morning Stroll. The next one I'm going to play is called Bushwick Tarantella Loop. Boy, that's a mouthful. Oh yeah, I'm feeling very Italian right now. What about you? I'm feeling very Italian. All right, let me lock that camera in place. Oh gosh, this is awesome. I gotta turn this up. All right, let's do some denim. Let's do some denim. I've got 2 layers. I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half to bring us up to 4 layers of denim. And I could go higher than that. I mean, this machine could easily handle it, but that's just the way I folded it. So we're going to go down and around. See if I can going to do a nice wide zigzag on this, I think, just so it presents real well. Go a nice wide zigzag on this, and here we go. And we'll do it without music, just to let you listen to the machine entirely. All right, here we go. I'm intentionally kind of slowing the machine down just so you can see that you don't have to go pedal to the metal. You can, but you don't have to. All right, go back towards the finish line. All right, here we go. Oh. Hold on just a second. I gave it too much gas and I kind of spun the spool on top. Let me just straighten that out. There we go. I should probably put a felt underneath. Oh, there is a felt. The felt is allowing it to slip a little bit for some reason. Maybe I'll have to pick a different felt. Maybe an Italian felt, huh? All right, so let's get that into position. Clip, clip. Oh, I see on the back I sewed over my thread. Jeez. I will try to untangle it if I can. There we go. Yeah, I still got part of the thread underneath there, but that's okay. That's okay, we can see the stitching fine. Yeah, let me use these clips to hold it into place. Okay, so this is, again, what do we say, 4 layers of heavy grade denim. Pretty much see it from where we're at right now. There's my little extra thread there, just ignore that. And we got this position right that we can actually look at both at the same time, top row and the bottom row. And that stitch is absolutely spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, exactly as we want to see it. And again, that's 4 layers of heavy grade denim. That is not an easy, boy, that was easy. I get contacted regularly by people that cannot do this many layers of denim with their machines, some of which are vintage machines. So that's an absolutely spectacular zigzag on these 4 layers of heavy grade denim. Let me go ahead and flip it around and let's look at the other side, the zigzag, to see how that looks. You can see already it looks really good. So here's our zigzag lock stitch through 4 layers of heavy grade denim. Yeah, other than my weird little extra thread on the end that I had to cut and kind of remove. Very, very good looking stitch, spacing, formation, just absolutely spot on. If I come out on the shot a little bit, you can kind of look at it in its totality, as I love to say. So I'm going to throw this to the back. Our 4 layers of heavy grade denim are a definite pass. Set that to the side. And you kind of hear that. It's the only thing that would irritate me a little bit is that, because that plate just kind of sets on there, just rattles a little bit periodically. It's kind of annoying a little bit annoying, a little bit. Okay, so let me pick another song. The last one again was called Bushwick Tarantella Loop, and this next one is called Bushwick Tarantella. Very Italian sounding, very Italian. All right, what should we do next? Maybe some compressed felt, huh? Yeah, let's do compressed felt. And I'm just going to do 2 layers. We could do 3, but I've got a piece of material that's not quite wide enough. I mean, it'd be really kind of a booger to try to... Well, I'm tempted now. I'm tempted. See how it's kind of keeps untucking itself, though. It's kind of irritating. Alright, let's give it a try. We'll do 3 layers of compressed felt, and I'll just try to get it into position so that it's not unraveling itself, hopefully. Alright, here we go. 3 layers of compressed felt. Here we go. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. Again, 3 layers of compressed felt. That's kind of what it looks like from the side, folks. Thick stuff, very thick stuff, and very densely compressed. That's why they call it compressed felt. All right, let's take a look at these. Look at that thickness. That's crazy. All right, let's flip it over and look at the lock stitch. Yeah, we ended just about with the music. Of course, I'll sweep it back one more time. So that looks absolutely spot on. Let me plug my camera back in. I've come up with a solution now as far as this battery. I was able to find a battery pack that was compatible with the camera. Excuse me. So now I don't have to fight that issue with the battery dropping anymore. Thank goodness. I know that was frustrating for me and frustrating for you as well. Because I would always be like, oh, we got to hurry up because the battery's going to go. Well, now we've got, the only thing we got now is limitations of the size of the card. And I think I got a huge card in this video camera. So we should be good to go. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. The 3 layers of compressed felt is absolutely spectacular. I'm going to throw that to the rear as well as a success. And we are going to move on. We are going to move on to the next sew-off. Italian style. Italian style. Almost sound like Dracula. Italian style. Blah, blah, blah. You can see my fingerprints all over the daisy wheel thing. Okay, we've done a ton of sew-offs already, folks, on this Necchi SuperNova. We've done compressed felt, we've done heavy grade denim, we've done Italian leather, we've done velvet. We did all of the outputs of cam number 30 that's in the machine right now. I'm running out of stuff to do. I'm running out of stuff to do. What the heck? But I'm not running out of Italian music, that's for sure. Yay. Let's see what we have now. How about we do the song that actually opened this premiere when I was showing the video from 2018, 2 years ago. And the opening song in that video is Italian Afternoon. Italian Afternoon. If it sounds familiar, that's because you've already heard it. All right, I'll turn this way down. Yeah, what should I do next? Guess I could do some cowhide. Yeah, we could do some cowhide. And I'll just modify this slightly. I'll go down to a 3. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to make it a shorter. I'm going to make it a more narrow zigzag, I think. Yeah, let's go with a more narrow zigzag. And I'm going to do, this is a little bit thicker genuine cowhide. I could do 2 layers. But I think I'm going to do 1 and kind of sew around on it a little bit. I think that's what we'll do. Alright, let's give this a go. Alright, here we go. There we go. Made a fun little circle, kind of almost like a snail pattern. Take a look at that. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I like that. Okay, so this is our single layer of genuine cowhide, probably about 4 ounces of leather. And I just kind of did a little dipsy doodle around for fun. And you can kind of see it there in the shot even without me modifying the camera. But that is, I'm going to loosen this up a little bit because that thing is really making it hard to move the camera. Hold on a second. There we go. There's all kinds of little settings on this tripod, and sometimes it doesn't do what I want it to do. Beautiful stitching, isn't it? I actually sewed over myself there. Alright, let me come out here and we'll flip it over and look at the lock stitch. And I better lock this in place, otherwise the camera will rotate all the way to the ceiling. Because it's evil. Alright, let's take a look at the lock stitch. Which is going to be a little bit tough to see because of the lighter leather. At least we're not dealing with the nap as well. This has a real flat nap on it. Which makes life a little bit easier to see in the camera, but not much easier. Gotta loosen this again. So I'm going to go real slow, and you may be able to catch a glimpse of it, although that green thread, oh my goodness, that stuff is just blending in. Go to the middle as well. All right. Well, it's a little bit difficult to see, but you get the idea. You get the idea that don't use a mint-colored thread if you're going to be sewing leather like this. Let me throw that to the rear, and that's a pass as well on Debbie's Necchi SuperNova. Let's see, what else can I do? 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 I've already sewn some real thin material. So let's do this. I'm going to do my final sew off. I've got a lot of other sew off material here that I could use, but I'm going to go ahead and sew off and do my U.S. Army grade canvas. And I'll go ahead and do, I'll do 8 layers of it. I'm going to lay down a zigzag once I get the camera positioned correctly. We'll lay down a zigzag and that'll wrap it up. Let's see. Oh, wow. We did Italian afternoon. That's the same one that I had in the original video from 2018. Now we have Italian morning. Let's see how Italian afternoon and Italian morning are similar or very different. They are different. All right, so let's do our 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. I've got 2 layers. I'm gonna go ahead and, I think I folded it sideways when I was practicing this. I believe I did. So that is 2 layers, 4 layers. Is that 8 layers or is that more than 8 layers? Let me see. 2, 4. Boy, that is going to be a booger if I can get through that. See what I'm trying to sew? Look at that. Well, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try. We don't like to make things easy on this channel, you know what I mean? All right, and I'm going to go with a wide zigzag on this. Using those little set screws to hold it in place. All right, here we go. 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. Yes, I said 8 layers. I'm not kidding. And this is our final sew off on Debbie's Necchi SuperNova. Here we go. Can you hear that plate rattling? A rattle, 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 rattle. I like Italian morning better than Italian afternoon, don't you? Okay, let's take a look at these stitches. And this is our 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. No easy task. We'll look at the thickness again. Beautiful stitching. Spacing the formation. Yeah, you really can't see the thickness from that side. All right, let's flip it around and look at the lock stitch. Are we going to see something dramatic? No. Just spectacular. Like this Italian morning. There's like a little dog hair or something there. Ignore it, ignore it. There you can see more of the thickness, but still not not really the thickness. I'll show it to you from the side. Absolutely spectacular, right? Absolutely spectacular. So let me lock the camera in place, and I'll just turn this to the side so you can see it from the side. Look at that. 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. It's a phone book, folks. We just sewed the Chicago phone book. So if you're in the Chicago phone book, good luck trying to read it now, because that's what we just went through. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, well, this wraps up this premiere and bon voyage. Arrivederci to Debbie's SuperNova. This is called Sandcastles, by the way. Arrivederci to Debbie's SuperNova, which apart from the lighting system is super, and apart from the complexity of the cams is super. It could be more super! So, 8 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. I'm going to put it on this extension bed. Single layer of genuine cowhide, about 4 ounces, beautiful. 3 layers of compressed felt, gorgeous. 4 layers of heavy grade denim, beautiful. 2 layers of Italian leather, sexy. 2 layers of velvet. The first time I think we've sewn velvet on this channel. Perfect. And last but not least, all these crazy cam outputs from cam number 30. Spectacular. There you go. Debbie's SuperNova. SuperNova. So, yeah, it's a great machine. And I've enjoyed having it in the workshop. All right, let's shut off the workshop lights. I think that's enough. Italia. Buongiorno. Take care and God bless.